The silence that shook the galaxy. For 3,000 years, the Terran Federation had been the galaxy's most reliable problem solver. When pirates threatened trade routes, humans dealt with them. When territorial disputes erupted between species, human diplomats found solutions. When ancient artifacts needed deciphering or Deathworld required colonization, humanity answered the call. Then, on galactic standard date 4847.231, something unprecedented happened. Humanity went silent, not partially, not gradually, completely. Every human embassy across the galaxy simultaneously powered down their communications arrays. Every Terran ship in space stopped responding to hails. The vast network of human colonies that stretched across 4 galactic arms simply stopped talking. This is the story of what happened during those 47 days of silence. It's about the moment the galaxy realized they had fundamentally misunderstood what humans actually were. And it's about the terrible mistake that the Hegemony Council made when they decided to investigate what they assumed was humanity's collapse. Because humans hadn't collapsed. They had been preparing. Admiral Marcus Kane stood in the command center of Fortress Luna, Earth's primary military installation, watching displays that showed the positions of over 6 million enemy ships approaching the Sol system. The largest invasion fleet in galactic history was 3 days out, confident they were moving against a dead civilization. "Sir," reported Commander Sarah Chen, "the Hegemony Armada is maintaining formation. They're broadcasting standard occupation protocols on all frequencies. They think we're extinct." Kane nodded grimly. "Let them think that for now. How are our Deathworld protocols coming along?" "All colonies have confirmed activation, sir. Every human settlement from here to the Outer Rim is locked down and ready. The galaxy is about to learn why Earth is classified as a Class 12 death world." The Hegemony Council had made a critical error. They had spent 3 millennia accepting human help, human protection, human solutions to their problems. But they had never actually asked the crucial question: what made humans so good at solving everyone else's problems? The answer was simple. Humans were really, really good at war. The Hegemony's fatal assumption. 3 months earlier, the Hegemony Council had made their decision in the crystal halls of Nexus Prime. 12 species, each representing billions of worlds, had voted unanimously to absorb human territory into their respective empires. Chancellor Vexthara of the dominant sovereignty adjusted her ceremonial robes as she addressed the assembly. "Fellow councillors, the human silence presents us with an unprecedented opportunity. Their federation appears to have suffered some form of governmental collapse. Their colonies are undefended, their fleets unresponsive. The humans have been useful," admitted Hierarch Zelmoth of the corporate hegemony, "but their independent nature has always been problematic. They refuse profitable ventures in favor of what they call ethical considerations. They intervene in conflicts that don't concern them. They insist on equal representation for primitive species." Admiral General Krextar of the War Council leaned forward. "More importantly, they occupy some of the most strategically valuable real estate in the galaxy. The Sol system alone has 18 colonized worlds and over 200 industrial platforms. Their military technology, while primitive by our standards, has shown surprising effectiveness. What the Hegemony didn't understand was that humans had spent the last 3 months implementing something called the Deathworld Protocol, a contingency plan that had been developing quietly in human military circles for decades. Dr. Elizabeth Hawthorne, Director of Strategic Planning for the Terran Federation, had been one of its primary architects. Standing before the Emergency Council on Mars, she explained the situation with characteristic human directness. "The Hegemony has grown dependent on our services. We protect their trade routes, mediate their conflicts, and solve their technical problems. They see us as useful subordinates rather than equal partners. Our xenobiological studies indicate they view us the same way humans view helpful but inferior species." Defense Minister James Morrison reviewed the tactical assessments. Intelligence suggests they're planning to divide our territory among themselves. They assume our silence indicates collapse or civil war. They've never considered that we might be deliberately coordinating. The beautiful irony, Dr. Hawthorne continued, is that they've never actually studied human military doctrine. They've seen us solve their problems, but they've never asked how we solve problems that can't be negotiated with or reasoned with. They've never seen us fight a real war. The Deathworld Protocol was elegantly simple. Every human colony, ship, and installation would simultaneously cease external communications while secretly coordinating the largest military mobilization in galactic history. The hegemony would interpret the silence as weakness and move to claim human territory. Then humanity would demonstrate why Earth was classified as a death world, and why that classification had been a severe underestimation. Colonel Maria Santos, commanding officer of the Titan Defense Grid, summed up the human perspective perfectly. They think we're diplomats and engineers who occasionally fight. They're about to learn we're warriors who occasionally do diplomacy and engineering. The Death World Advantage. The classification of Earth as a Class 12 death world had always been a source of amusement for other species. Sure, humans came from a dangerous planet, but they seemed so reasonable, so cooperative, so focused on building rather than destroying. What the galaxy had missed was that surviving on a death world required a very specific set of skills. And those skills, when applied to warfare, created something terrifying. Commander Alex Rodriguez, head of the Special Operations Division, briefed his teams from the underground facility beneath the Sahara. Gentlemen, ladies, the hegemony thinks they're dealing with a collapsed civilization. They have no idea they're about to encounter a species that evolved in an environment that actively tried to kill them every single day for 4 million years. The numbers were staggering. While the hegemony had assembled 6 million ships for their invasion, they were designed for conflicts with other civilized species. Their tactics assumed enemies who followed conventional military doctrine, who valued their own lives, and who could be intimidated by shows of overwhelming force. Humans had spent their entire evolutionary history developing strategies to kill things much larger, stronger, and better armed than themselves. They had turned persistence hunting into an art form. They had learned to use tools, terrain, and teamwork to overcome opponents that should have been impossible to defeat. Major Jennifer Park, analyzing the enemy fleet composition, highlighted the critical weaknesses. Their formations are optimized for maximum intimidation factor. Their ships are larger and more heavily armed than ours, but they're also slower and less maneuverable. They're designed to win through superior firepower in direct confrontation. The problem, she continued, is that humans don't do direct confrontation unless we absolutely have to. We do ambushes. We do hit-and-run tactics. We do psychological warfare. We do whatever works, regardless of whether it's considered honorable by galactic standards. Captain David Chen, commanding the Earth Defense Fleet, outlined the human approach. Every predator on Earth learned the same lesson eventually. Don't fight humans on human terms. We're persistence hunters. We're tool users. We're pack animals with communication abilities. We don't give up. We don't fight fair. And we don't stop until the threat is eliminated. The Hegemony Fleet was 3 days out from Sol when they detected the first anomaly. Their long-range sensors picked up what appeared to be debris fields scattered throughout the system. Hundreds of thousands of objects, ranging in size from small fighters to capital ship components, drifting in seemingly random patterns. Fleet Admiral Nexavara of the Hegemony Armada reviewed the sensor data with satisfaction. As expected, the human fleet has suffered some form of catastrophic failure. These debris patterns suggest internal warfare or systematic fleet destruction. We should encounter minimal resistance. What the sensors couldn't detect was that every piece of debris was actually a powered-down human ship, waiting in perfect ambush positions throughout the solar system. The Deathworld Protocol had turned humanity's home system into the largest trap in galactic history. The trap springs. On Sol 3, Admiral Kane watched the enemy fleet cross the heliopause and enter human space. All stations, maintain radio silence until my command. Let them get nice and comfortable. The Hegemony fleet moved with the confidence of beings who had never encountered effective resistance. Their massive dreadnoughts led the way, followed by thousands of support vessels. They were broadcasting surrender demands and preparing for a simple occupation of human worlds. Enemy fleet is proceeding to primary targets, reported Commander Chen. Their formations are exactly as predicted. They're splitting up to simultaneously occupy Earth, Mars, and the major industrial platforms. Excellent, Kane replied. They're doing exactly what humans would never do, dividing their forces in unknown territory against an enemy they don't understand. Signal the fleet. Execute Deathworld Protocol 7. What happened next would be studied in military academies across the galaxy for generations to come. The debris fields came alive. Thousands of human ships that had been drifting powerless for days simultaneously activated their systems. But instead of powering weapons and shields like conventional warships, they activated something the hegemony had never encountered in warfare: mining equipment. The first phase of the attack wasn't conducted by military vessels at all. It was conducted by converted asteroid miners, deep space excavators, and industrial salvage ships. Vessels designed to cut apart asteroids, process raw materials, and operate in the most hostile environments imaginable. Captain Lisa Park, commanding the converted mining vessel Prometheus, led the first wave. Remember, people, we're not trying to fight their dreadnoughts. We're trying to blind them, cripple them, and make them panic. Hit their sensor arrays, communication relays, and navigation systems. Make them deaf, dumb, and lost. The mining ships swarmed the hegemony fleet like angry insects, using industrial cutting lasers, gravity manipulators, and debris launchers to systematically disable the larger vessels. They were too small and numerous to effectively target, and their weapons were designed to dismantle objects much larger and more durable than conventional starship armor. Admiral Nexvara watched in horror as his command displays went dark one by one. What are they doing? These aren't military vessels. These are those mining ships? His tactical officer, a Zephyrian with advanced computational abilities, analyzed the attack patterns with growing alarm. Sir, they're not trying to destroy us. They're trying to capture us. They're using industrial equipment to systematically disable our ships while keeping the crews alive. That's impossible. You can't conduct military operations with civilian equipment. Sir, the tactical officer replied quietly, I don't think these are civilians. I think these are humans. The second wave consisted of what appeared to be exploration and survey vessels, ships designed for long-range reconnaissance, geological analysis, and first contact protocols. But these vessels had been repurposed for something much more sinister: psychological warfare. Commander Robert Taylor, leading the Psychological Operations Division, coordinated the second phase from his converted science vessel. All units, begin information warfare protocols. I want every enemy ship receiving continuous broadcasts of human military history, Deathworld survival statistics, and detailed analyses of what we do to species that threaten Earth. The hegemony crews found their communication systems flooded with human data, videos of apex predators from Earth, historical accounts of human conflicts, detailed explanations of human military doctrine, and, most disturbing of all, clinical analyses of human psychological responses to existential threats. The broadcasts weren't random. They were carefully designed to explain to the hegemony exactly what they had just done. They had threatened the home planet of a species that had evolved to kill everything that threatened them, a species that had turned warfare into an applied science. The human approach to warfare. What the hegemony discovered in those first hours of conflict was that humans approached warfare the same way they approached everything else, as an engineering problem to be solved. General Patricia Kim, commanding the overall defense, explained the human philosophy to her staff. Every other species in the galaxy treats warfare as an extension of politics or resource competition. Humans treat warfare as pest control. When something threatens our survival, we don't negotiate with it or try to find common ground. We figure out how to make it stop existing. The third wave of the human defense consisted of actual military vessels, but even these defied galactic conventions. Human warships were smaller, faster, and more maneuverable than their hegemony counterparts. They were designed around the principle that the best way to win a fight was to ensure your enemy couldn't fight back. Captain Michael O'Brien, commanding the heavy cruiser Chicago, demonstrated classic human tactical thinking. Enemy dreadnought bearing 27 Mark V. It's got heavier armor and more firepower than we do. Standard engagement protocols? Asked his tactical officer. Absolutely not. Standard protocols are for species that fight fair. We're going to get behind it, disable its engines, then systematically take apart its weapon systems until it's helpless. Then we're going to board it and have a conversation with the crew about their intentions regarding Earth. The human boarding parties were particularly effective. While other species used heavily armored soldiers for ship-to-ship combat, humans used something much more terrifying: engineers. Lieutenant Sarah Jones led a boarding team onto a hegemony cruiser using nothing but standard environmental suits and industrial tools. Remember, people, we're not here to kill anyone unless they make us. We're here to demonstrate that their ship belongs to us now, and they're welcome to leave peacefully or stay as our guests. The hegemony crew, faced with humans who could apparently repair, modify, or disable any system on their ship within minutes, quickly discovered that resistance was futile, not because humans were overwhelmingly powerful, but because they were overwhelmingly competent. The humans didn't just capture enemy ships, they improved them. Hegemony vessels found their own systems running more efficiently under human control, their weapons more accurate, their engines more powerful. It was humiliating and terrifying in equal measure. Admiral Nexavara, trapped on his disabled flagship, found himself in the unusual position of being offered tea by his captors while they explained exactly what they had done to his fleet. "Admiral," said Commander Chen, settling into the chair across from him, with polite professionalism, "I want you to understand that this isn't personal. Your Hegemony Council made a strategic error. They assumed that human cooperation indicated human weakness. They failed to research what humans do when cooperation fails." "Your species," Nexavara said, his voice hollow with shock. "You're not diplomats at all, are you?" "Oh, we're excellent diplomats," Chen replied cheerfully. "But diplomacy is just war by other means. When you threaten someone's home, you discover what they're really capable of. And humans, Admiral, are really capable of ending threats to our home." The Deathworld revelation. By the end of the first day, the hegemony invasion force had suffered a 93% casualty rate. Not in terms of deaths, human doctrine specifically avoided unnecessary killing, but in terms of combat effectiveness. Their ships were captured, their crews were prisoners, and their military capabilities were completely neutralized. But the real shock came when the Hegemony Council tried to understand how such a massive fleet had been so completely defeated by what they had assumed was a collapsed civilization. Dr. Hawthorne, broadcasting from Earth, provided them with a comprehensive explanation that would fundamentally change galactic understanding of human capabilities. "Esteemed councillors," she began, "you made your decision to invade human space based on several critical misunderstandings. First, you assumed that our silence indicated weakness rather than preparation. Second, you assumed that our cooperative nature indicated limited military capabilities. Third, you assumed that being from a death world was a disadvantage rather than the ultimate military training program." She activated holographic displays showing Earth's classification data. "Your xenobiological surveys correctly identified Earth as a Class 12 death world. What your analysts fail to understand is what that actually means. Earth isn't just dangerous. Earth is actively, aggressively, creatively hostile to complex life forms." The displays showed Earth's predator populations, natural disasters, disease vectors, and environmental hazards. Every single day for 4 million years, our ancestors faced threats that should have driven them extinct. Predators that could kill them in seconds. Diseases that could wipe out entire populations. Natural disasters that could destroy civilizations. Climate changes that could end ecosystems. And they survived. Not just survived, they thrived. They developed intelligence, cooperation, technology, and military capabilities specifically designed to overcome impossible odds. They became the most successful persistence hunters in the galaxy. They learned to use tools, tactics, and teamwork to defeat opponents that were larger, stronger, and better armed. Chancellor Vex Thara, watching from Nexus Prime, began to understand the magnitude of their error. You're saying that humans are naturally equipped for warfare? I'm saying that humans are naturally equipped for survival against existential threats. Warfare is just applied survival skills. When you threaten human survival, you activate 4 million years of evolutionary adaptation specifically designed to eliminate threats. Dr. Hawthorne continued her explanation with clinical precision. Your invasion force represented exactly the kind of threat that human evolution prepared us to handle. A large, powerful enemy that assumes superior firepower guarantees victory. Every apex predator on Earth learned the same lesson. Humans don't fight fair, they don't give up, and they don't stop until the threat is eliminated. The galactic response was immediate and unprecedented. Every major power in the galaxy began emergency diplomatic communications with Earth. Trade agreements were revised, military alliances were offered. The Hegemony Council formally requested immediate ceasefire negotiations. But the most significant change was in how the galaxy viewed the concept of death worlds, 2000 to 2300. The new galactic reality. Admiral Kane stood in the United Nations Assembly Hall 3 weeks later, addressing representatives from across the galaxy. The invasion had been over for days, but the political ramifications were just beginning. Ladies, gentlemen, and distinguished beings, he began, the recent conflict has demonstrated something that human leadership has long suspected but never been able to prove. The galaxy has been operating under some dangerous misconceptions about the relationship between technological advancement and military capability. He activated displays showing comparative analyses between human and hegemony military doctrine. Your species developed advanced technology and then used that technology to build bigger, more powerful weapons. Humans developed advanced technology and then used that technology to build more effective ways to disable bigger, more powerful weapons. You focused on overwhelming firepower. We focused on tactical flexibility. You built dreadnoughts. We built maintenance crews that could turn your dreadnoughts into our dreadnoughts. The assembled delegates shifted uncomfortably as Kane outlined the new strategic reality. Every species in this galaxy has made the same fundamental error. You've assumed that Deathworld survivors would be limited by their primitive origins. You've never considered that Deathworld survivors might have capabilities that civilized species lack. He gestured to the holographic display showing human territorial boundaries. Humans currently control less than 2% of inhabited galactic space. We've been content with that arrangement because we believed in cooperation and mutual benefit. The recent invasion attempt has forced us to reconsider that position. The implications were staggering. Humans had demonstrated that they could defeat forces many times larger than their own, using tactics and technologies that other species had never encountered. They had shown that Deathworld evolution produced capabilities that civilized development couldn't match. Chancellor Vex Thara requested permission to address the assembly. Admiral Kane, on behalf of the Hegemony Council, I formally apologize for our actions. We misunderstood human intentions and capabilities. We would like to discuss terms for peaceful coexistence. Kane nodded politely. Chancellor, humans have always preferred peaceful coexistence. That hasn't changed. What has changed is our confidence that peace can be maintained through diplomacy alone. Dr. Hawthorne took the podium to explain the new human position. The galaxy now knows that humans possess military capabilities that were previously unknown. This knowledge creates both opportunities and responsibilities. We propose a new framework for galactic governance based on accurate understanding of each species' actual capabilities rather than assumptions about technological development. The framework was revolutionary. Instead of governance based on technological advancement or economic power, it proposed representation based on demonstrated problem-solving capabilities. Species would be evaluated on their ability to handle different types of crises, with military capability being just one factor among many. Humanity. Fuck yeah. 6 months later, Admiral Kane stood on the observation deck of the newly constructed Terran Strategic Command, watching human ships patrol what had once been the most contested region in galactic space. The invasion had ended not with human expansion, but with human acceptance as the galaxy's primary security provider. Commander Chen joined him at the viewing port. Sir, the latest reports from the outer territories. Piracy incidents are down 97% since we began regular patrols. The Zephyrian-Rigelian border dispute was resolved through arbitration, and the corporate hegemony has requested our assistance with their worker uprising situation. Interesting, Kane mused. 6 months ago, they were trying to conquer us. Now they're hiring us. It makes sense when you think about it, Chen replied. They've discovered that military problems require military solutions, and humans are really good at military solutions. We've become the galaxy's emergency response service. Kane nodded. The Deathworld Protocol had accomplished something unprecedented. It had demonstrated that human cooperation wasn't weakness. It was strength. That human diplomacy wasn't naivety. It was efficiency. And that human military capabilities weren't primitive. They were optimized for victory under any circumstances. You know what the most interesting part is? Kane asked. Sir? We're still the same species we were before the invasion. We're still cooperative, diplomatic, engineering-focused problem solvers. The only thing that changed is that everyone else finally understands what we're capable of when cooperation fails. Dr. Hawthorne's final report to the United Nations captured the essence of the transformation. Humanity has not become more militaristic. The galaxy has become more realistic about what military capability actually means. We remain committed to peaceful coexistence, scientific advancement, and mutual cooperation. We are simply no longer willing to pretend that peaceful intentions guarantee peaceful outcomes. The galaxy had learned a fundamental lesson about the nature of strength. Real power wasn't about having the biggest weapons or the most advanced technology. Real power was about being capable of solving any problem that threatened your survival, regardless of the complexity or scale of that problem. And humans, as the galaxy now understood, were really fucking good at solving problems. The Deathworld Protocol had ended, but its legacy continued. Humanity had taken its place as the galaxy's ultimate problem solvers, not through conquest or intimidation, but through demonstrated competence under pressure. Because that's what Deathworld survivors do. They survive, they adapt, they overcome, and when necessary, they win.